Hi everyone, and welcome back to the Shamrock Quilt Studio. Today we're working on our AZURE project and we're talking sashing today. The first thing I did when I started with working on this today is I laid all 20 blocks out. 4 this way, 5 this way. And I probably spent an hour moving blocks because I wanted them to be kind of in a somewhat random pattern, but I also had some ideas about where some of them should sit. There were a couple of them I wanted to be at what I would call the top and on the outside corners. And then I also wanted it to be a little bit of a checkerboard style where the blocks that were more brightly colored had more white in them, and the ones that were darker, that had darker fabrics or had less white in them, they kind of alternated. So what I found is I would put them all out and then I would say, these two look too much alike. So I would move them and I'd sit back and look at it. And then I would say, those two both have too much white. So I would move 2 more. And this went on until I finally got to a point where I liked everything. So now we're ready to move on to sashing. What I'm going to do is I'm starting out with the rows that have 4 blocks, and I'm putting a sashing in between each one. So for each row there's 3 pieces of sashing. Now I cut this sashing, here's right here. I cut this sashing at 2.5 inches. And then I'm putting the blocks on here so that I make sure that I don't get, how to explain this, so that I'm putting them only on the ones that need that vertical sashing. So in other words, I want to make sure that the sashing that goes directly above the row on the top, on both sides, and on the bottom are continual pieces. And then the ones that are longer are going to be continual pieces. I think that's right. Let me look at my picture and make sure. Because what I did is once I got everything positioned how I liked it, I took a picture. And I think what I'll do is I will share that on the screen so you can see what that looks like and how I've decided to arrange them. I hate it when things don't work for you. Okay, so yes, these are going to be actually the vertical sashing that we're adding. So I decided to put them on here in the order that they're going to go together. And then that way the horizontal strips would be continuous pieces and the pieces on the outside would be continuous pieces. I don't know why that was so hard for me to relay to you. So on this one, we talked about this one block here that I'm working on being just a little bit short, a little bit smaller. So I'm actually going to line it up so that the sashing hangs off about 1/8 of an inch here, and then we're going to sew it. And I'm just using a regular stitch. I'm not using the super tiny stitch. That will make it a little bit more difficult to get that paper that's left on there off, but it will also allow me, if I need to adjust it, I can. And I think we're all set up over here to do a little bit of sewing. And I'm going to set it on my 1/4 inch. And then I'm going to just adjust it 2 clicks. So it's just a little bit narrower than 1/4 inch. Okay. So there's 3 pieces put together, and we're going to be sewing 4. So I've got 1 more that needs to go on here, and I have to refer back to my picture to know which one that is. And for some reason my thing is not sharing my pictures with me. This will be the next one, and I want to pay attention to how I had it set up. If I'm doing that piece there, it will be this one. I think that's right. I'm not sure. So what I'm going to do, instead of sewing that on, I'm going to stop and take it off. I'm not back stitching at the end of each one of these. And I'm not doing anything like that, so that I can take it out if I need to. And then what I'm going to do, I'm going to demonstrate this to you. If I can find my rotary cutter. There it is. So I've got these sewn on, and I'm going to put my block right there. And then I'm going to trim. And I come and do this one. And this one. We're going to keep that sashing straight on there so it doesn't move and we get a nice straight line. Whoops. Okay, and then we're going to come back and trim the other side. All right, so now we have sashing on that side. And I know that seems a little overly particular, but you need all of that room, so you want to make sure that you don't cut it too short, and you want to make sure you don't cut it at an angle, because the last thing you want is it too short. One left. All right, so we've got those together. And then what I'll do is I'll use my picture as a guide so I can see that where I want to put these together is going to be this, this one, and then we're going to end up with this. So this didn't need a strip. Can you see that? This one didn't need a strip. So we can pin these together now. And we want to align those at the corners. I'm not, because this sashing doesn't have a seam line, a piece of paper showing the seam line, I'm just lining up the edges. So that's hooked. And now we want to hook this one. And the last one. All right, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to sew these seams really quickly, and then I'll show you what the whole strip looks like and tell you what's next. Okay, so let's take our pins out. I think we've got all those. And now we have another row of blocks. Make sure that you can see that. Now, I'm going to go back to my picture again and see that the next row is, I've already got a couple done. And let's move them up a little bit so you can begin to see what this is going to look like as we get them together. And then this one is this. So there's 12 blocks that I have sashing going in the vertical direction. When I hang this, it's going to hang vertically. So there'll be 4 across the top and then 5 down. So this is the 4 across. Actually, this is the middle row. So there's 2 more rows that go in above this. But I think you can kind of see that I've got a kind of a light block and a dark block and a light block and a darker block. Sometimes you have to kind of use your imagination. A light and a dark and a light. So we've got that little alternating block going on. This is going really well, and I believe that by cutting my strips for my sashing with the fabric, I should be able to put a single row here. Now, when I put that together, what I'm going to want to do is make sure that when I hook that sashing on this side and go to pin it on the next side, I'm going to need to be really careful that we line up one block seams to the other so we get those where they need to go. And you don't want to handle these a lot because we've not back stitched at the ends of these, and what will happen is these will begin to kind of pull apart. And if you're concerned about that, you can always back stitch. That would be helpful. Now what I'm going to do once I get all 5 of these rows done is come in and start taking some of that paper out. In any of these blocks that has paper on the sides that were sewn together. This one already has it done, so there's no paper here, but there is paper here. And then this one, we have the same situation. And then the one we just sewed together, that's the one I'll need to address. I'll take this paper out here, but I'll leave this here. And that'll help us. We're kind of taking the paper out as we go, leaving it in there to support the blocks until it's sewn on all the sides. But this is coming together really quickly. You know, we worked really hard to get all these blocks done, and because we were doing them like every other week in the videos, it took a long time to get 20 blocks together. And now we go from completing the 20th one to starting to put it together really quickly, and I think we'll begin to see it form its full top really soon. If you like this video and learned anything from it, or you just like hanging out with us, give us a thumbs up. Be sure to subscribe to the channel. And as always, we'll see you next week here at the Shamrock Quilt Studio. Bye.